Okay, we have a very interesting topic today. Are we going to a war? Siddharth, the floor is yours.
Not right now. I'm not saying we'll go to war this year only or next year only.
Uh huh.
But what I said was, if there is World War III that is going to happen, the conflict will have its roots in the Indian subcontinent. Like either there'll be an India-Pakistan thing, and China will come in between, and then America will have to get involved and all of that.
Uh huh.
And I'm pretty sure that is what is going to happen. And I have a few reasons behind it, right?
Okay.
So, first of all, we all know the way India is going. We are going towards, I wouldn't say uh, like complete religious bigotry and hatred and fascism, but we are getting there, right? With the kind of propaganda that the ruling party is spreading.
Right.
There are these dharam sansas that happen in world, and these gurus and Hindu leaders. This happened last 2 months ago in Haridwar. It's again happening, I think today or yesterday, and they're all promoting violence. They're all promoting hatred. They're all saying that you should, if you're a Hindu, you should have weapons at home, which is unheard of before this. And this is not just these guys, right? There has been a systematic weakening of the systems of the checks and balances that prevent such a thing from happening in our country. Our
Okay.
very secular fabric is under threat, right? So one of these days, somebody has to just lose his shit, and things are gonna go down. The way I see it happening is after Modi ji, Yogi ji will be the Pradhan Mantri, right? From the
Okay.
BJP, there's no other candidate, and the extremities of the Hindutva card that BJP has been playing will only come out when Yogi is in power. Modi is a moderate. He tries to take everybody along and all of that. So he won't really.
Can you repeat yourself? What did you just say? I want to hear that clearly. Like,
Yeah,
can you please repeat yourself?
in RS's eyes, in the eyes of the extreme right, Modi is a moderate, not in my eyes, right? So for them, they are all pissed off.
I,
Like the
I,
right wing societies, the Vishwa Hindu Parishad and the RSS and the others, they're all pretty pissed off. They're like, what is this time pass you're doing? You promised us Hindu Rashtra, and you're not, coming true on that promise. So we are looking for that. So I'm pretty sure once they take out their support, Modi can't really win elections back to back, right? So I'm guessing max one more term he'll get. After that, Yogi ji will be the Pradhan Mantri.
okay.
And BJP anyways has a rule of 75 years. Now picture this, right? Yogi Adityanath is the prime minister of the country, right? And
Why don't you think we'll have someone like Amit Shah as the prime minister next?
no, because Yogi has a bit more appeal. He's a more experienced administrator in terms of ruling. He's ruled Uttar Pradesh for
Okay.
for one term right now. He'll again win this election, so it'll be two terms.
How are you so confident?
He is good. He's gonna win the election. He's gonna form the government. You can like out of 417 seats, he needs only 208. Last time
Okay.
he got 300 odd seats.
Oh,
So there's no competition. He's gonna come. He's gonna make the government. He won't get 300 plus seats, but yeah, he's still gonna form the government.
okay.
Now picture this. That's what I'm saying. Once you picture Yogi as the Pradhan Mantri, right? He can take any excuse to declare war. He doesn't need a major excuse. He'll be like, there are infiltrations happening. Pakistan is not listening to us. So we have to declare a full out, blown out war. Now, in such a situation, what happens? Say India attacks Pakistan, right? And Pakistan, as we all know, is no match when it comes to India in a warlike situation, right? But there will be few battles in the beginning, and over there, Pakistan will give us some kind of fight, and because of that. China will get involved because China and Pakistan are allies. And once China gets involved in the conflict, and there's no way for the US to stay away from it. And once the
Because it's the
US is
US.
in, no, it's see, China and US are the only two powers left right now. The USSR, Russia is almost a joke now, right? So
Right.
these are proxy wars. We all know about proxy wars, right?
Right.
Now India is supported by the US, Pakistan is supported by the Chinese. Once China gets involved, India will obviously call upon its ally, right? Why will they not? And the US will have to respond. Now, once that happens, it is so easy to involve other nations into the conflict because see, all the developing nations in the world are in Asia, most of them, right? Europe doesn't really have a lot of developing nations. It has got most of the developed countries. It's
Okay.
either Asia, Africa, or South America. So it's most of it is below the equator. Some of India is obviously above, but what I'm saying is the southern hemisphere will go to war with each other, and the northern hemisphere will keep playing proxy wars with us. So, and the kind of hate propaganda that is being spread not only in our country but in Southeast Asian nations, right? In
In
Malaysia and
China as well.
in China. I'm not sure about China, but Malaysia,
Bro,
Cambodia,
come on. The
Laos.
entire country of China is based on the fact that the CCP can convince its people that the safest route is to make sure that there's no question of revolt or anything with the CCP.
Right. So when you think of that and you think of uh, all these messed up rulers in the Southeast Asian countries, you have Duterte in Philippines. He's a madman. You
Yeah.
have uh, you have Laos. You have Myanmar, which is a military dictatorship. Right.
Right.
All these guys are our neighbors. Sri Lanka is anyways bankrupt. So there is a lot of uh, anti-establishment hate that is prevalent throughout these countries, right?
Okay.
And if the present rulers need to stay at their place, they
Okay.
need to invite external conflict because internal conflict will throw them out. And what
Right.
better external conflict than a world war?
Okay. Okay.
So
And so your theory is this, that it starts with the Asian subcontinent, and the reason for this is major developing countries are here, investment is here, leaders have to stay in power, and
there's a lot of hate and difference being spread between populations. That is a
okay.
recipe for war. That is how World War II started. That is how World War One started, right?
Okay.
And if you look at history, the countries that have progressed the most are also the ones who have been at war the most, right? Because
What?
war brings,
What are you saying?
yeah, yeah.
That's
You
not
can look,
true.
you can look at, you can look at the countries that have been through war, and you can look at the countries that have never been through war, and you'll always find a stark difference in the kind of development and innovation that they've seen. Because
Dude, so
war forces industry to innovate at a rapid pace, right? It forces the population to take part in industry. It forces the industry to innovate and produce at a pace that it has never done before. And because of that, there are no prisoners taken, right? That, like, the entire economy is on nitro mode. Like, everybody is quick, everything is quick, everybody wants production. The government wants things to be produced fast. They're looking for innovation. So you look at what the companies that were supporting Hitler. You have Bayer, right, which is one of the biggest
so
chemical companies right now.
okay. Okay. So
You have,
I I get your theory that okay, uh, this is the thought process behind it and all. My counterpoint is this: maybe you're absolutely right that industrial push which a country goes through is what's needed in a war. You're absolutely right. My point here is this: if I so I'll just summarize what you said and then I'll give my point of view, and you correct me if I'm understanding any part of whatever you said wrong.
Yep.
Your point is that there are sufficient non-democratic governments to create a conflict, and the largest countries, which is China and India, don't go hand in hand yet, and they have been fucking around with each other for quite some time. And your theory is this, that eventually it'll get to a boiling point and it'll spill over and it'll result in a war. And when it does result in a war, people will start favoring this way or that way because whatever reason, right? They want to continue being in power, they want to sound right to their people, stuff like that.
But the
And I
major,
agree with that.
the major reason for it to start is the hatred that is being spread in India.
Right.
It's not anywhere else. And I'm pretty sure it's going to spill out 5 years down the line, 5, 6 years down the line, if not right now. Once Yogi is in power, his first item of action will be this: that in 100 days we are going to build a Hindu Rashtra. Now, Hindu Rashtra involves invading all the neighboring countries. Even Myanmar is a part of Hindu Rashtra.
So I get
Of course,
where
it's
you're
a
coming from.
conspiracy thing, right?
Yeah. Dude, so that's
But
why it's the hilltop, man.
yeah, I'm pretty sure this is how it's going to happen.
Let me tell you where I disagree that there's going to be a chance for a war. Narrative and communication is a very important thing, and
Right.
the status of what's the right word? The status of human technology or the technology of a country is another important thing to
Right.
figure out if people want to get to a war.
Right.
Okay. My main difference of opinion where I feel that a war will not happen, it's not going to happen because the main idea is we have crossed that phase in our technology cycle as a species, in the sense that we've seen the impact of nuclear bombs, we've seen that figuring out how to work together is the most profitable outcome for everyone.
Right.
We've seen that it is actually not that hard to keep your population in check. Okay. So when I'm looking at these scenarios, 50 years ago, when the first war did happen, 70 years ago rather, during the Second World War, industrialization was still getting up to steam, getting up to speed. And a war would have helped the effort because information was still not as accessible it is as today.
Right.
So coming from that perspective, over the last 70 years, which has been the longest time we've been there without a global war. I'm talking about global war where there's multiple nations involved and they're siding, and there's 2, 3 superpowers or whatever it is. I think one of the superpower falls the way USSR did, falls the way of what happened during the Cold War. Everyone was expecting a Cold War, right? But whatever, something went wrong and it didn't happen. I think most likely we end up in that scenario wherein one of the superpowers will just, well, pretty much bully the world. It may be China, it may be the US. Hell, I'll go out on a limb. It may be Yogi Ji's Bharat.
Yeah.
Point is this, that this human species technologically has come far enough that starting a war is very detrimental to the people who are actually calling the shots. And you'll be like, Nikhil, don't you think the political leaders are calling the shots? They're not. My fundamental disagreement with you starts from there. I think companies like BlackRock are calling the shots. I think these guys who have huge investments even in China are calling the shots. And they realize that a war can seriously fuck things up. Let's break it down here. China has grown tremendously in US. If I'm in China's perspective, they have to sustain this growth. If not, the populace will go crazy and start fighting against itself. Where does this growth come from? It comes from the next bunch of developing countries. They'll sell to India. India has been like a major importer. Last year, we had, despite COVID and all that, we had the highest number of imports from China. Economically, it makes no sense for them to go to war with India. Let's look at Africa, let's look at Pakistan, let's look at Indonesia, let's look at Sri Lanka. What they will do is what US has done traditionally, which is establish these places as allies or set up pseudo governments there. But all out war is detrimental to them as an economy. Getting people to believe or hate someone to a level of a war at that scale, I think is harder today, okay? Because everyone has access to information, and if
Right.
it has to happen, it will be restricted to small pockets which are not exposed completely. So, I mean, was it Myanmar or Burma where Facebook's influence actually ended up killing a lot of people?
Same thing, that it's the same. Myanmar is the English name, Burma is the local name.
Right. So that is an internal conflict for various reasons, whatever they may be. I don't think that scales up to the magnitude of 7 billion people. Now, why? Because the people in power want to make sure that they are returning 33% or 20% a year on year to their investors.
Yep.
And that is where I have a fundamental issue with what you're saying, which is war is not going to be profitable. China attacks India, you're fucking destroying your own future growth potential of the market. And I think we live in a capitalist society. The CCP, they may claim to be communist, but I think even they have internal, they're also, sort of running basically they're running a country as a company. Right. So what's your counterpoint to that? When I say that, look, economically it makes no sense, whom would it benefit? The Second World War would benefit Germany because there were serious economic implications for it. They wanted to take over the trade routes from Britain, or they wanted to take over the trade routes from France, and that's why that was hindering their automobile output, their export market, right? So now a war, whom does it benefit really? Like, seriously think about it. Economically.
See, unless China goes rogue and starts invading countries, I don't see any economic benefit for war. But that is
Exactly.
but that is also one of the reasons why I think it is possible, because China does need new markets. It has exhausted its existing markets. Africa
No,
is
it
not a
hasn't.
market.
Dude, India had just barely penetrated. Only in one sector. A lot of Asian, Indonesian countries, it's barely penetrated. Only one or two sectors. You got what I'm trying to say? I think there's no real economic benefit for anyone by going to war.
So you're saying capitalism is finally come onto its own, and now people won't really fuck with it.
What I am trying to say is this. Okay, let's start with this. You think we live in a capitalistic world?
Yeah, of course.
If you think we live in a capitalistic world, any capitalist society will tell you that war is detrimental. Economically, it's bad. It kills consumers, and consumers are the people who are on top in a war. In a capitalistic society.
Right.
You'll be like, what are you saying, Nikhil? I mean, aren't the people who are rich and all? No, the people who are rich are the ones benefiting the most out of it. Actually, when you think about it, it's amazing for consumers. Like, I was reading an article the other day. The world you and me live in as middle class people, our lives across metrics, health, knowledge, uh, access to food, access to clean water, all these things across a lot of these metrics was better than a lot of kings during the feudal ages.
Yeah, of course.
That's because of capitalism. That's because consumer is the king in a capitalist society. And I think we live in a capitalist society where the largest where the largest country, which is China, if you think about it, is run like a company internally. And for them also, getting into a war is a detrimental activity. You said historically wars have always been driven by economic incentives, one way or the other. And that is where I have a firm belief that, boss, war is not possible. You'll have conflicts. You'll have shit which Russia is doing in Ukraine, which I am like, why are you guys so surprised? I mean, they already have a dummy government in Ukraine. But I hope you get where I'm coming from. Like, tell me where my viewpoint is wrong, and I'll be like, okay, I agree, and maybe I'll change my perspective and maybe get more cautious. But tell me where this particular thought process. Let's take China for example, right? Alibaba is one of the biggest company. Of course, I don't know. I hope Jack Ma is alive. But tomorrow, Alibaba, which is inching towards a 400 500 billion dollar company, employs every single manufacturer in China one way or the other, directly or indirectly.
Right.
Say they don't have US and India to export to. What do you think that manufacturer is gonna do? You think he's gonna sit and shut the fuck up? He'll lose his shit on the government. He'll be like, why did you invade these countries? I sell there. I sell billions of dollars of goods there.
They don't really listen to businessmen, dude.
I
That is,
disagree. That's what I'm trying to say. They don't listen to businessmen when it comes to political topics, but from economic topics, they do. One of the reasons why that businessmen have got such an incredible push is because of their laser focus on economic growth.
no, it's subsidized. It's all state subsidized industry more than anything else, and
Dude,
that
my
is
bottom line
that
is
is
this. In
more
the end,
that is more
who
the
is
reason that they
buying
will.
from them? In the end, who is buying from them?
See, what I'm trying to say is China as a country has been on this path of economic resurgence because of state-sponsored industry, right? It has not encouraged innovation, entrepreneurship, or listen to entrepreneurs and businessmen. They are a dictatorship. They run like a dictatorship. So tomorrow, if they decide to go to war, they will not listen to any businessman, whether it is like you. We
No,
saw
so
how businessmen are
so
treated by
let's
the
let's
Chinese, dude.
theorize it, right? Like
Jack Ma,
let's
you know what happened to him, no?
I
You
know my
saw what
let's
happened to him.
theorize this. Look, what I'm trying to
See,
say is
why
this.
why I'm saying this, the subcontinent is a hotbed is because of guys like China, right? Because of countries like China. They
Dude,
are
so
unpredictable. Like
I
what you're
I
saying,
agree
you
with
can't
you.
say that.
What I am trying to say is you have do you agree with this that war and economic outcomes have been directly related more often than not? It's
Yeah,
because of economic issues why wars start. You
invariably.
tell me, I am Xi Jinping. What is the economic output which I get if I go to war? Tell it to me, and then let's try to theorize it. Hypothetically, explain to me. I am Xi Jinping. What's the economic output? I want to go to war. I want you to give me an economic reason to go to war. Tell me what it is.
Okay, see, I'll take you back to Nazi Germany, okay?
Right,
So Nazi Germany was an extreme example of a state-directed economy in which the needs of individual capitalists were
right,
subordinated to the needs of the national capital,
right.
right? So the production was geared towards military, the
Okay.
breaking into the nearby markets which are currently closed. Even the same case with China. Like most of the markets nearby, one or two industries they've opened. Otherwise, most of these markets are close to them, right?
I didn't understand.
Also,
Can you repeat?
so production was geared towards military, right? In Nazi Germany, the same thing's gonna happen with China,
Okay.
because the nearby markets aren't really favoring China as a state. Not just the nearby, even foreign markets. Everybody wants a China plus one strategy now, because they all saw how unpredictable China is after COVID.
Okay.
Right. Now, so in the First World War, German capital took a gamble that as a it was a late comer to the imperialist table, so it could grab markets that it needed to compete with the more established powers, right? Right now, China is not an imperialist power. We all know that, right? But
Yep.
China has come to a point where internally there is not much that is left to do for the communist government in their priorities, right?
Okay.
They have themselves fulfilled a lot of the things that Chairman Mao had wanted to.
Okay.
Now, what is left is finding a market for the established industry that is already existing in China,
Okay.
right? Now, when they want newer markets, and the newer markets won't really operate according to them, the only option that is left is invading these newer markets,
Okay.
colonizing them. And that is what China is going to try. That is what China is going to try and do,
So my
because
my
there is no other logical explanation to the kind of economic growth that it is seeing. It doesn't need to do this.
so for that itself, what I am trying to say is to accomplish what you just said, going to war is detrimental. It destroys a society. They will accomplish this indirectly by buying power, by buying
Which
influence,
they already are doing, right? They're already
which they
buying
are
a lot.
doing exactly. So my point
Yeah.
is, why go to war? You get where I'm coming from. What you just described makes complete sense, and I agree with it. And the strategy for it is not to invade, it's to buy. It's so much cheaper. Because, dude, I don't know how else. So let's take one of the reasons why I actually have respect for the Indian government here in what they did, and I think it was a very good move.
Right.
Was they limited the amount of Chinese ownership which is possible in specific industries, and that was a bold step. They even banned them from the public markets. Because why? Because they could foresee this. They could foresee China buying influence. What I am trying to tell you is America has been buying influence in India for a very long time.
Yeah.
Like BlackRock recently BlackRock has been purchasing companies in India left, right, and center. Big real estate companies.
Yep.
So my point is, if I am Xi Jinping and I'm trying to buy influence, wouldn't I rather do that instead of going to war? Is what I'm trying to ask you. And you'll be like, so, don't you think with India putting these.
But the coffers will run out, right? Eventually, how much is he going to buy?
Dude, a war is more expensive. What are you trying to say? Wars are freaking
But
expensive.
you get financed for war. You don't get financed for buying influence. It only lasts so much. That's what I'm trying to say, dude. Like the war is an elaborate story that leaders need to sell to their people,
No,
right?
so look, okay, so you are trying to tell me that China doesn't have enough money to actually buy influence for their next markets? That I completely disagree.
Yeah,
Because
it doesn't
they
have
are
money
taking
to
the
it
route
doesn't
which.
it
Yeah,
doesn't
go
have
ahead.
money to buy existing influence also, dude. We've seen the kind of backlash Chinese entrepreneurs and Chinese companies have faced. We've seen what that real estate company Evergrande had in store. And why did it expand so much? Because it was state sponsored, right? The state kept giving it money to expand, and it started defaulting, and after a while it was just a debt trap. Most Chinese companies are like that.
So one
Most
sec.
Chinese
Coming
towns
to
are like
the
that.
coming to the backlash point which you said, I want to talk specifically about TikTok over here and ByteDance. They faced some kind of, you know, repercussion or whatever it is, but they're still one of the largest social media network. They're not there in India, and I'm sure they'll make a comeback soon. And you'll be like, Nikhil, what are you saying? Dude, PUBG made a comeback. You can play PUBG right now in India with ease. Takes couple
Huh.
of years. You figure out a way around the laws, and you can do it. Point I'm trying to make is that is cheaper than getting to a war. What I'm trying to, you're telling, okay, buying influence, they've not been able to do it. Evergrande is a different story of mismanaged, you know, loans and assets
It's
and of
not,
the
that's what
way.
I'm saying. Most companies in China are of a similar story. It
Okay.
is all state-sponsored growth. The insane growth that we've been seeing with China for the past 30, 40 years, most of it is state-sponsored, right? Now the state's coffers are going to run out eventually, right? The state cannot keep sponsoring growth, cannot keep sponsoring more and more factories, more and more production, because there is not enough consumption in their own country, right? We've all seen ghost cities, right, in China, how
Yeah.
there are hundreds and hundreds of buildings, nobody's occupied them.
Right.
Now, tell me this, there are established factories with established capacities, right?
Right.
And they need a market for these factories, right?
Right.
Now, when it comes to buying influence, first of all, it's a very slow process, right?
Right.
Some agree, some don't agree, countries.
Okay.
है ना? And even after they've bought influence, they need to give a quid pro quo. They
Okay.
need to offer some amount to these guys so that they can build their own bridges and all of that, which
Okay.
the contracts for which will come to Chinese companies.
Okay.
Eventually China, it मतलब चाइना का गवर्नमेंट डायरेक्टली पैसा नहीं देके किसी और के गवर्नमेंट को पैसा देके इनको दिला रही है, बट आगे पीछे तो गवर्नमेंट का पैसा ही मिल रहा है ना, बाहर से दे आर नॉट अर्निंग एनी फॉरेक्स, right? And China is a heavily export dependent economy. We all know that, right? It exports more than any other country in the world.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to when the coffers will start blowing off, when the state cannot sponsor any more expansion, economic expansion,
Okay.
where do you think they will get their markets from? They will not have enough time to buy influence, right? They will have to invade countries. That is the sole reason China is trying to make this whole Silk Route come back. Buy so much influence in Africa. They're building military bases all across the world because it knows it will come down to a show. It will come down to a showdown between China and the US, right? And the US has been preparing for the past 50, 60 years. China has just started, and because the consumption is not as much as the production is, and everybody wants to move away from China for when it comes to sourcing. We all saw that after COVID.
No, but no one has been able to, right? You have to understand
Huh,
that
so
also.
that's what I'm saying. It's
Trying is one thing,
so
not
see,
being
that's
able
what I'm
to
saying.
make a dent.
No, that's what I'm saying. There has been a dent in most industries. Like in textiles, Vietnam has become the preferred supplier. Bangladesh has become the preferred supplier. People are moving out of China.
Okay.
Now, this is going to happen in every industry, right? And once that happens, China loses its export markets, at least half of it. It
So
already
you're
doesn't
telling
have an
Xi
existing.
Jinping to consolidate his power will just push the country to a war?
He's already consolidated power. He doesn't need to consolidate. He's declared
No. So
himself the
look,
leader for the.
what is the biggest threat to him? Is the biggest threat which we saw in Arab Springs, which is the people. You don't know when they lose their shit and they'll be like, this guy is not good for us, and fuck them
No,
up.
no, no. I don't think Chinese people are a threat. I think his own party is. There are a lot of people who are a threat to him, but he's eliminated most of those threats also, and
Right.
he's declared himself as the PM. So there is no question when it comes to authority. Xi Jinping is the authority now, right? Now it is all upon him. What I'm saying is economically, China doesn't have anything left when it comes to markets, and for newer markets, एक तो buy influence buy करना is very expensive, है ना? It's not as expensive as war, but it is expensive. Secondly, it takes more time. Whereas when it comes to war, nobody will question the finances, right? Everybody will be like, हाँ पैसा लो, मतलब war है अभी क्या question करेंगे? And secondly, once you invade a country, you've taken over a market. You're not negotiating, you're not giving quid pro quos, there are no meetings. पूरा मार्केट ले लिया तुमने और तुम्हारा रूल चलेगा ना यहाँ पे कि कौन सा यहाँ पे आएगा सामान नहीं आएगा. So China needs a crazy amount of markets because of the kind of factories they've established. वरना
Okay.
उतना तो डिमांड ही नहीं है जितना ये लोग बना रहे हैं चीजें. ना घरों का डिमांड है ना चीजों का डिमांड है. तो it is going to boil down and spill out.
Now, okay, so the economic argument, I'll be like, okay, I get where you're coming from. That look, Nikhil, for continuing its economic dominance, they'll have to get to a war. Let's talk about the next part, which is why I feel we won't get to a war. The nuclear nature of the next war, whenever it does happen. So, what do you think of that? See, because the next war is going to be a nuclear war, that's very clear.
Yeah. And that is what is the most scary part, and that is also why I think war won't be declared by these countries, like whoever is the country, whether it's the US, India, or China, because nuclear weapons are not just a badge. It's not just a badge of power, not just a badge of dominance. It's also a deterrent, because once you fire a nuclear weapon on your enemy, they will also fire one back, and they are not going to wait around. And nobody wants an all-out nuclear war, because we all know that if it comes to that, then it's the end of the world. There's nothing left, as it's the end of the world as we know it, at least. And that is a very gory picture if you look at it. Like, an all-out nuclear war is the stuff of apocalypse dreams. Like, you do not want that on at least in your tenure. If you're a leader, you do not want to be the one who declared all-out war and started the world nuclear winter. And it is going to be a nuclear winter. Like, it's going to change everything if there is a World War III and it is a nuclear war. So
That's the stark reality.
it's a very, very gory reality. Like, nuclear bombs today are at least 200 times more powerful than the ones that were dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. You can't fathom the kind of destruction they will bring upon the country that is being used, that it is being used on.
I
So
also think that
there is a joint
this
statement of
this
leaders.
itself is a big deterrent, dude. Like, why
Yeah,
I
yeah.
keep telling you it's not happening is because of this. If you cause such massive scale of destruction, it's fucked.
It is. And see, there were a lot of meetings, and there are a lot of world leaders met and they gave out statements. There were at least 100 of these when world leaders met and gave out statement that there's not going to be any war. This was right before World War One, and there were almost 100 of these statements. So I for one don't really believe in these statements. Most of them are PR campaigns. But like you said, the kind of destruction that an all-out nuclear war would bring, it is just beyond comprehension, right? And uh, it's a strategy that will just destroy the world as we know it. It's mass destruction, right? And it just takes a small fraction of a second, and it can have a long term radiological impact, right? Even after the war is over, like we still see that the kids in Hiroshima and Nagasaki are affected by the radiation that is still going on. But I don't know, man. I genuinely believe the in the affinity for conflict in humans. Like we somehow find a way to fight, and I'm constantly in awe of the kind of reasons and the kind of wars that have taken place, right? And who is to say that it's not going to happen again? Why would it not be the case that there is a all out nuclear war and everybody is participating in it? And obviously I know that there are only a few handful of countries that have nuclear weapons, but they're enough. Like with them, with a lot of allies, you just need two sides, one one allies, one axis, right? So I don't know, man. It's a genuine possibility, I think. And obviously, there have to be a few events that are drastic that will lead to this. I don't know what are these events. I'm not sure how it's going to turn out, but it will come to a nuclear war. I'm pretty sure of that. It's a very high possibility that that the threat of nuclear
Dude,
conflict
the
exists.
next war is end of the human species, in my opinion, if it does happen.
Not really. Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
nuclear,
see,
dude.
there will be nuclear firings all over. I agree, but there will be a few places left which are untouched by war, right? So you never know. But I don't think there's obviously nothing that can convince me or you right now that there's going to be a war. But like I said, when it comes to conflict, you don't know what is going to trigger the next conflict. Like world World War One did not really start with the assassination of a royal in some Eastern European country. There were a lot of events that happened in the lead up to the World War, right, which contributed to it. The assassination only triggered all out war, but the feeling of war, the commitment to war was already there, right? Uh, so, like President Ronald Reagan has mentioned before, like that a nuclear war cannot be won and it must never be fought. And this is what helped end the Cold War as well.
Yep.
But even today, the risk of nuclear conflict erupting is increasingly high, right? Between the US and China and between the US and Russia. So I'll tell you what. So there is the Taiwan conflict in China, and there is the Ukraine conflict in Russia. Ukraine conflict, we are already seeing it take place. Like we're all seeing what is happening. You're discounting the whole thing, but I don't know. I'll never and I for one, as a person, never underestimates Vladimir Putin. Putin is a madman. He can do anything, right? So that is one. And then there is this conflict in China and the conflict in Hong Kong. And if the US takes the other side, they're going to piss China off royally. They already have pissed China off, and it's only a matter of time before China loses its shit that you can't keep doing this to us again and again, right? I don't know, man. Okay, so also there has been so much that has gone into the nuclear
I
modernization.
I I want to talk about the type of wars also. And the reason I bring this up is the COVID and the theories that it was actually started in a lab. So, what do you think of that, the bio warfare?
It's a possibility. I'm not really sure if COVID was an example, but yeah, biological warfare started in World War One. Like we saw, there were chemicals being used at that time as well. So if these countries could do it a century ago, what is going to stop them now when they have better technology and better means and better chemicals? I don't think they're going to stop. And so, you know, s- w- conflict comes from various reasons, from various sources, right? And this much I have understood in the past few years, that conflicts and tensions have only increased. This whole idea of peace and pacification of continents is going nowhere. Everybody is increasingly getting radical, increasingly uh, ready to fight. There has been so much investments into, in the past 3 decades, into modernization of nuclear facilities, whether they are missiles, the submarines, stealth bombers, or cruise missiles, all of them nuclear powered, right, with nuclear missiles uh, included in them. And we have seen this with the major countries, the US, Russia, and China. They have spent the most, they have modernized their warfare and their warfare equipment more than any other country. And nobody's claiming that that's going to happen right away, but if there is a conflict, and if there is even a hint of some kind of uh, uh, conflict with each other, then everybody is ready to go out on a war, right? Everybody is ready with their missiles, with their nuclear missiles, with their stealth bombers, with their submarines. So it's just a matter of time. I don't know why I can't see any other way. And I don't even have a solid reason as to why war will be declared. But I honestly think that because there is so much investment into the global arms race, there is so much investment into nuclear technology,
Yep.
that coupled with rising tensions because of the internet that has opened up everything, right? There is so much tension, there is so much hatred being spread, and we all know that hate spreads so much faster on the internet than love. All these things coming together is a recipe for war, in my mind at least. I don't know. I can't see any other way. I,
Yeah.
yeah, that is why I think, yeah, we are at the brink of war. When I say the brink of war, I'd say I'd give it 10-15 years.
So, I have one final thought before we sign off for today's session. If we do end up going to war, of course, you said that maybe it's not the end of the human race, but I think it is. Simply because of the fact that there is no way, no way whatsoever that nuclear technology has not improved since 1945.
Oh, it
You
has,
said
it
it's
has.
200 times better. I can assure you it's at least enough to take out an entire urban city, a
Yep,
large urban city,
it is, it is.
probably a state. And when you break it down, you need what? 200 missiles? 400 missiles to take out a major chunk of the population.
Yep.
I think we have much, 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 much more than that.
Yeah, yeah. Like,
And why I don't want to believe that the world is at the brink of a war is, in my opinion, that's the end of the human race. And I want to be a more optimistic person.
Huh,
Not
that is fine.
apart from some of the factual parts, I'm like, boss, if this happens, it's game over.
So, but tell me this, when have we thought of ourselves as a human race collectively against any common enemy? Right now, the enemy is nuclear weapons.
Okay.
Right now, the enemy is climate change, the global warming. When have we come together as a race and fought collectively against a common enemy? We've never done that. We are not capable of that because there are so many differences. And
Yeah, so the reason why I feel, the next war again, if it does happen, it'll be so fucked up for us is I think the tech has become so much larger than what a human can really comprehend.
yep.
And if it does happen, it's game over, boss. Because the tech is, see, we think the internet was built by people and humans, and internet itself has become so complex, so diverse, and so huge that it's hard for humans to comprehend. I think it's the same thing with military tech. When someone says that you can stake out an entire state with one button, when we do get there, I don't want to hope this happens because I feel it's the end of the human race. There's no doubt about it.
It's the end of major races, but not the end of the whole race, I think.
Dude, so where do you think it's not the end of the human race? What part? Like, if you think it's a physics problem, I'll break down the physics for you, right?
No, no,
You
it's not a
don't.
physics. It's not a physics problem. I'm saying the missiles and the attacks will be constant. It will not be worldwide. Like
Okay.
even if you look at World War One or Two, the conflict was concentrated to Europe.
See, I'll tell you what happens. Say there is a nuclear launch by one country, and you, of course, don't want that because if that happens, you've pretty much set things in motion to end the human race.
Yeah.
One country launches, other country retaliates, third country launches out of safety, fourth country retaliates. The chain goes on and on and on, and you have every nuclear warhead in the air.
Yep.
And once it's in the air, it lands. And the thing about nuclear, which people don't get
See,
to
I'll tell
realize
you,
or think
there
of
are
realizing
only
is you it's not just that one event of an explosion. With nuclear stuff, you have wave after wave after wave of radiation hitting you for thousands of kilometers. It will, dude, those are bullets which are hitting you, boss.
yeah,
Like, have you seen the Chernobyl TV show? There was
yeah.
a power plant, Siddharth, that was not designed to work that way, and it did, and it decimated that entire part of Russia. And
So that is what I'm trying to say. So even today, there are 8 or 9 countries that have nuclear capabilities, right? Chances are these countries are going to attack each other only. That is why they've built these capabilities. Now, when you plot these countries on a map, you you'll notice that these are all neighbors and they are concentrated on specific parts of a continent. It's in Asia, it's the subcontinent. In Europe, there's France, there's UK, there's Germany, and there's Spain. If I'm not sure of Spain. Then there's Russia. There's nobody in Africa. There is Australia, and then there's the US. Canada has 1 or 2 carriers. These are the main major people who have nuclear capabilities, and they'll only attack
okay,
each other.
so you're like it'll be
So,
end of all the major economies.
yeah, it's gonna be that. It's like that is gonna happen, of course. And
Okay,
then there's Africa is left, South America is left, Central Asia is left,
right,
the Middle East is left.
right,
So there's a lot of people that won't be affected, I think.
okay,
Because it is a nuclear war, it will be concentrated. If it was an on-ground war, if it was a war that was being fought by the cavalry and the military, it would have spread like wildfire because everybody can get involved there. In a nuclear war, it's not everybody's game. It's a few people at the top of the table.
interesting. Okay, that's a fair point. I'll consider that maybe it's not the stark end of the world.
It is not.
And
But yeah.
I have a recommendation for you, Siddharth, here, and for
Uh-huh.
our audience also. On Netflix, there's this crazy movie called Don't Look Up.
Oh yeah, the recent movie, right?
Uh, yeah, and you have to watch it. I think it's one of the better movies which has come out from the Netflix, podium, and been very impressed with it. And I urge you to check it out. And it talks a
Okay.
lot about the end of the world and how it would happen, and how even if there is a glaring sign which says that, hey, this is the end of the world, how we will not take action. And
Yeah.
even if it is like a scientific fact, there will be questions whether it's a scientific fact or not.
Yeah, that's what's been happening
And
with climate change, right? We still got deniers in political leaders, in leaders of countries who
yeah,
are denying climate change as a concept.
right.
You can't deny rain, you can't deny science, but there are people who are denying it, and they're elected leaders of countries.
Hmm.
So that shows the kind of madness we are capable of
Right.
as a species. So if that is possible, I think war is a very small possibility. Like,
Right.
and so this is obviously start as a conflict between two nations, right? It will
Right.
escalate to a war when there is usage of nuclear weapons. Otherwise, it's a conflict, and we've seen a
Right.
lot of conflicts after World War II.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's hope that it
I,
doesn't.
I hope I'm wrong. I obviously don't want a war, but I don't know. My mind doesn't seem to look the other way.
I wonder what media you have seen to influence that thought.
I don't watch news channels.
So where else has it come from? Is what I'm thinking. What was the seed of that thought? Is what I'm thinking to figure out. And I
I
think
think
I think it would be
I think it's hatred more than anything else. When when goods stop crossing
yeah, yeah,
borders,
yeah, yeah.
arms start crossing borders, right?
Right, right.
So, and that we've seen that happen increasingly over the years, over the past few years. So I'm pretty positive that one of these days it's going to end up into a conflict between two countries.
Okay.
Let's see.
Let's see. Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
All
Uh,
right, guys.
that's about it for today's episode, guys. And this was the Hilltop, a very interesting topic to say the least. Thank you so much for watching. See you. Sorry. See you in our next episode. Bye,
Bye bye.
guys.